welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm super excited because it is my February wrap-up video. So I'm going to talk about everything that I read in February 2021. I ended up reading 11 books in the month of February, which is actually really good. And I'm up to 20 books total now for the year of 2021, so I'm like super excited. To start off, I'm Heather. I post videos about books, fashion, and I also do challenges. If you're interested in seeing what I'm going to be reading in March, stay tuned till the end screen, and I will have my March to be read list down on, I believe it's the bottom left-hand side is where I put my to be read list for the next month. Also, if you want to know what I'm reading, the books I'm buying, anything interesting, and you want to see it before it's actually on my YouTube channel, I also have an Instagram where I post all that stuff at Lady Heather 1543. And yes, let's get started on what I read. So, I'm not going to do this in any particular order, but it was a February, and that is like the month of love and romance. So I did read quite a few like contemporary romance novels, and then I also read quite a bit of fantasy. But the book I was the most excited about that actually released in February was The Iron Raven by Julie Kagawa. I love the Iron Fae series. It is one of my all-time favorite series ever, and so I was really excited when I found out that she was going to be continuing the series. And this is actually from Puck's, Robin Goodfellow, his point of view, and this is a continuation of her brother. Like, there's the 4 books of her series, and then it's about her brother, and now this is a continuation, and it is from Puck's point of view. And of course it has Grimalkin in it, who is my favorite. If you don't know who Grimalkin is, he's pretty much like the Cheshire Cat. And this series is very much, at least the original series, is very much like Alice in Wonderland mixed with the Labyrinth, and then you throw in fairies. So it's just a really great series. I did really enjoy this. It wasn't as good as the original series, but it's still very enjoyable, and I look forward to reading more. I found out that there was actually a prequel novella that takes place in between the last Iron Fae book and then the Iron Raven book. So I read The Shadow's Legacy by Julie Kagawa, and this is Ethan and Kenzie's wedding, and this is also from Kerrigan, Megan's son, his point of view about the wedding day and a prank that Puck does that it wasn't supposed to be a prank. He did it with good intentions, but it got a little out of control. So it was really cute, short. The first book I actually finished reading and I was super excited for, and then it ended up not being as good as people were making it, or maybe that's just me, but it was The Lovely War by Julie Berry. I mean, the cover's gorgeous. The idea of it was really good. Like, the romance in here, you follow 2 different couples during the World War II, and kind of their love story and the ups and downs. But I'm not a big fan of war stories, especially when they're real wars. I love fantasy wars where there's swords and magic and it's not realistic. But when you're actually talking about real war that happened where real people died, I don't like that. I don't watch war movies either, just because it's too real. And when I read, I like things to not be realistic. So I felt this book was too realistic, I guess is the word. And so there's actually a scene in it where one of the characters actually sees his friend get blown up. And that was kind of very disturbing. Yet again, though, I know war books, it's supposed to highlight the horrors of wars, that it isn't the glorified amazing thing that they try to make it seem. It's horrible. So they did that very well. They also showcased the racism that Black Americans faced among their own, like, the army. Like, they were treated horrible and killed by their own, like, the people who are supposed to be, like, their friends, their allies, like, they're all on the same side, they're all Americans, they're all fighting against the Germans, and they're getting murdered by their own people. That was also, I didn't realize that happened, and that was kind of really upsetting too. But the book is pretty much about Aphrodite telling the story about these two different couples, and how she, like, why she loves humans, and why their love is just worth, I guess, living for. And I mean, it was interesting, but I don't know, I guess it was just too depressing. Even though it's romantic, it was too depressing for me. So yeah, I can understand why. It is beautifully written, it is a concise, well done book, it's just not for me. So I don't know if I'm going to continue reading any of her books or not. I guess it all depends on if they're, like, based on, like, real events in, like, history or not. And then I decided to pick up The Dating Plan by Sarah Desai, and this was so cute. This is a contemporary romance, and it's kind of like enemies to lovers, but also, like, long-term crushes. We have Daisy, who has had a huge crush on Liam since they were kids, and he was supposed to take her to prom and never showed up. He disappeared, and they never heard from him again. Well, Daisy is very much nerdy and introverted, and, you know, she dresses kind of quirky, and she also doesn't, like, she likes to move around in different jobs. She's, like, a developer, and she likes to move around and help out, like, startup companies and then move on her way. She doesn't like really forming, like, connections to people. So her and Liam end up running into each other at this business conference where the new startup company that she's working for is trying to promote their like, organic feminine hygiene products. And she's being one of her aunties show up to, like, introduce this guy that they think that she should, like, you know, date to maybe marry because he's a good Indian boy, or guy, I should say, a good Indian guy. And so she's, like, trying to run away from her, and when she runs into Liam, so then she lies to her auntie that Liam is her fiance, and he goes along with it. Well, he secretly had a crush on her all this time, and there's, you know, certain reasons why he didn't take her to prom. It's not because he's a bad guy. And it's just about their relationship and, like, the misunderstandings and then them coming to terms with what happened. And it's a really good book, and I really liked it. And I also liked it that the main girl was kind of, like, really kind of unique. She, you know, kind of nerdy and quirky, but also, like, I don't know. I really related to Daisy, so I really like this book. This is really good. Then I also finally finished the Book of Mortals trilogy. This is by Ted Dekker and Tosca Lee. I'm gonna tell you, I'm not a fan. I love Ted Dekker. I've loved like every book that he has written alone, like his book. He's written with Frank Peretti and they've been okay. He wrote this series with Tosca Lee, not a fan. I've never read anything else by Tosca Lee, so I'm thinking her writing style or her ideas might be why I didn't like this series. Because it's basically a retelling of Jesus, but his name's Jonathan. It's set in like this sci-fi world, and they take Jonathan's blood and put it in them to change them, and they have like different abilities or smell differently, and they're like split up in these different factions who all believe, you know, that Jonathan like had a different plan and goal of him coming, and they think some people believe he's dead because they actually watch him get murdered, and other people believe he's alive. But specifically in this third and final book of the series, one of the sovereigns has created a virus. And once he releases it, it's going to kill all the Dark Bloods and all the Immortals, and it might turn the Sovereigns, like, take away the emotions that they gain from being becoming sovereigns and become like corpses again. So there's a lot of like controversy among the sovereigns about whether they should do this or not. And one of them goes to like warn the Dark Bloods. Well, not really warn, but try to convince them to join them and like turn from their ways. And then someone else goes to the Immortals to try to get their help to go and kill the leader of the Dark Bloods. And I don't know. I just don't recommend it. I'm sorry. Everything else by Ted Dekker is amazing, but this is not. I'm sorry. It's not. Then the most surprising book that I read was The Raven and the Dove by Caitlyn Davis. Such a good book. Oh my goodness. So I'm in this Goodreads group on Goodreads, and this was one of the books that they had. And at first I was like, you know, I haven't really heard anything about it. I'm not interested. I'm not going to buy it. Well, then they had The Princess and the Pawn novella on one of like my book emails I get for free. And then they had the first book, The Raven and the Dove, for like $1.99 or $2.99. So I was like, okay, it's on sale. I'm getting the novella for free. So I'll give it a shot. I'll see, you know, how it goes. It was so good. So it's set in like this fantasy world where there's 5 different like bird houses, but they're like half people, half bird. And they, once all the royals are like 18, they like hold this competition and they like choose their mate. Well, in this world, magic is considered like a curse by the gods. And of course, our main characters have magic and they have to hide it, because if they let people know that they have it, they're supposed to get like exiled or, you know, executed or whatever. And the main girl meets this guy who's posing as the prince, but he's not actually the prince. And of course they like fall in love, and there's like all this political stuff going on. And then there's like underneath the 5 bird kingdoms, there's this like big fog that hides like the world below where like the dragons are supposed to live. And there's like this human king down there that has magic, and they're like plotting with someone, one of the bird people, I don't want to give any spoilers, to get the main girl character because they believe she's like the princess of this prophecy that needs fulfilling. And it was just so good. It was just so good. So then I also read The Princess and the Pawn, which is all the events of the 2 main characters that happened the day before the Raven and the Dove start. But it's such a good series. The 3rd book is coming out in June. So I'm going to read the 2nd book in May. That way I can then read the 3rd book in June. I would have read them like both in the same month, but I kind of want to space it out instead of having to read both of them right now and then have to wait all the way till June to read the next one. So I'm going to hold out. I'm going to read the 2nd one in May and then the 3rd one in June. And I'm super excited because it probably was the best book I read. And I wasn't even planning on reading it to begin with. So I highly recommend The Raven and the Dove by Caitlyn Davis. So good. Then I read A Faux Love Story by Lone Lee. And this is about 2 rival Vietnamese restaurants. And the son of the one restaurant owner and the daughter of the other restaurant owners, they kind of had this interaction when they were younger, and they kind of liked each other, but their parents are like, oh no, that family's evil, they're bad, you know, you can't talk to them. And so then they meet. They've been going to like school together the whole time, but they've kind of been in their own separate like spheres, and they end up like meeting and talking, and they have to write, well, they don't have to, they agree to do pieces for the school newspaper about local restaurants. So he wants to be a writer, and she wants to be an artist. So she like creates an illustration of the restaurant, whether it be the food, the decor, the owner of the restaurant, and then he writes a piece about it. And so they kind of really connect over their different like art forms, and there's like a bigger mystery to why their two families don't like each other besides their competing restaurants right across the street. This wasn't as good as I thought it would be. It's not as, like, exciting or well written, but I'm thinking it's supposed to be more like thought-provoking, and to keep in mind that, you know, if people have rivalries, that there might be a bigger thing, like a misunderstanding, and that people really need to communicate and understand each other instead of just assuming and making assumptions. So it was really good. It was really enjoyable. It just wasn't as, like, cute and, like, romantic and, like, heartwarming as I thought it was going to be. But it was still really good. Then, the other book that I really liked, and I thought it was absolutely adorable, was A Taste for Love by Jennifer Yen. This was so cute. This is like a K-drama version of The Bachelorette, set in high school. So, Liza is a Asian American teenager, and her mother wants her to date a nice Asian boy. And she's always like white boys that have, like, blonde hair and blue eyes, and, you know, they're kind of like the jocks, and, you know, kind of like Chris Hemsworth or like Chris Evans, or, you know, she has been into those type of guys that her mother doesn't approve of. And so her parents own a Asian restaurant and a bakery. And she loves baking and she wants to be a baker, but her parents don't think that's, like, they're like, we've worked hard, you know, with this restaurant, long hours and everything. We want you to go to college and get a good education, but she loves baking and that's what she wants to do. Well, every year her mom throws this baking competition and she wants to be in the baking competition, and her mom says, no, you can't, but you can be a judge. Well, when she shows up for the baking competition, all of the competitors are teenage Asian boys. And, like, her mom has been, like, talking to their moms, and they've been talking, like, kind of, like, conspiring about, you know, who she's gonna date and everything, and she is totally aloof to this. But previously, she had met two of the contestants. One of the guys, he had kind of, like, stuck up for her when she confronted her, now ex-boyfriend about him cheating on her. And then her and her friend are at a restaurant and meet this guy's, the guy who stuck up for her's friend, and they, like, kind of become friends. And when the guys find out about what this competition is really about, so they kind of work their magic to get in so that she doesn't have as many guys to be competing for her, you know, affections. And it was just so cute. And of course she, like, ends up with one of the guys that, you know, interceded in the competition. Of course, that's not really a spoiler because when you're reading it, you know. But it was just so cute. And it was just, like, it gave me, like, warm, fuzzy feelings the whole time. And it was just, it was very much, if you like K-dramas or even, like, a romantic anime, like, you'd love this book. Yes. 5 out of 5 stars. So good. So good. Then I read The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty. And this is the second book of, I think it's called the Davabad series. But there's The City of Brass, which I read in January. Then The Kingdom of Copper, which I read this month, in February. And then The Empire of Gold, which I'm planning to read in March. In my January, you know, what I read in January, I said that The City of Brass was pretty slow, and it picked up at the end. This is true. So book 2 was a lot more enjoyable. It got a lot more exciting. More things are happening. Like, I'm really excited for The Empire of Gold because I think it's going to be, the last book's going to be really good. But The Kingdom of Copper takes place 5 years after the events of the City of Brass. And, yeah, basically, I don't really want to say much. It's about, like, the jinn, basically, like, genies. And it's set, you know, over in, like, the Middle East. And it's just, it's really good. But yeah, you have to get through the City of Brass to get to this, and then I think the Emperor Gold is just gonna be It's gonna be all worth it. It's gonna be all worth it. I'm hoping. You'll find out next month if it was all worth it or not. Or if you decide to read all the books before then and to see yourself. But that one, yes, it did get better. So I'm happy I'm sticking with that. And then the last book I read, which wasn't on my TBR list, it just so happened that I like finished reading everything that was on my TBR list, and I was like, well, let me try to get something, you know, finished that I started. So I finished reading Sex and Vanity by Kevin Kwan. This is by the same author who wrote the Crazy Rich Asian series, which I absolutely loved. The movie was great. The books were amazing. Oh, so good. Sex and Vanity, though, I didn't enjoy as much. I didn't, like, read through it as quickly. I started reading it, I believe, back in August of 2020, and I just finished it in February of 2021. But it's about this, girl who goes over to Greece for her friend's wedding, and she meets this guy named George, and they kind of have, like, I don't want to say a summer romance, because they're only, it takes place over a week or two, but they kind of have, like, I guess a holiday romance. And they're doing something that gets caught on film, and they're kind of mortified, and they kind of go about their separate ways, and then 5 years later they meet up again, and you know, she's engaged to someone now, and he's still single and by himself, and I don't know, it was good, but it just wasn't as good as the Crazy Rich Asian series. It wasn't as, like, opulent, like reading the Crazy Rich Asian series. There's a lot of, they're talking about, like, brand names, they're talking about, like, fashion a lot, and more about, I guess, like, their wealth and what goes into being wealthy and whatnot. And in this one, it wasn't so much like that, which, I mean, I guess in this one it was more about the characters and the relationship between them. So if that was the goal that he wanted, he achieved it. It just wasn't what I was expecting after reading the Crazy Rich Asian series. So I still enjoy it. I still enjoyed it. I'm still going to continue reading his books. It just wasn't as good as the Crazy Rich Asian series. And it also kind of felt really short. Like, I think it was like 300 pages, but it just didn't seem like much happened in that time. Like, it's like, this is the story, 5 years later, this is the story, and then this is the end, and it was just like, yeah, not much happened in 300 pages, in my opinion. It was just kind of, yeah. So, that was everything I read. Did you read any of these books? Have you read any of these books? Let me know down in the comments below. And, you know, if you like this video and you want to continue seeing more videos like this, please subscribe. Also hit the bell. And also, give me a like. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.